Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
Welcome back to Battles of American Civil War, which hosts Bang and Dang. Last week we had Plain Store and Port Hudson, both part of the siege of Vicksburg. This week we'll have the Battle of Milliken's Bend, Brandy Station, Lake Providence, and maybe Second Winchester. We'll see how long we get, if we can get to that, see how long it takes us. We'll start with the Battle of Milliken's Bend, June 7th, 1863. During the campaign, Grant had kept a supply base at Milliken's Bend in Louisiana as part of his supply line. Soldiers had been housed at the site before being deployed in the campaign, and a number of hospitals had been established there.
Well, ain't that nice?
Right.
Well, during the siege, however, Ulysses S. Grant had a different supply line opened. The Union Navy took control part of the Yazoo River and Chickasaw Bayou vicinity, established a point from which supplies could be sent over land behind the Union lines. Look at you, Grant. While a position at Milliken's Bend was still held, its importance was greatly reduced since the Yazoo River position had become Grant's primary supply depot. Meanwhile, Confederate President Jefferson Davis was pressuring General E.K. Smith, commander of the Trans-Mississippi Department, to attempt to relieve Vicksburg's garrison. Smith was unaware that Grant had moved his supply line to the Yazoo, and still believed that Milliken's Bend was a primary Union supply depot, and they would be wrong.
They sure would be. Immediate command of the offensive fell to Major General Richard Taylor.
So this is happening during the Vicksburg siege, right?
Right.
So, I mean, this has to contribute it.
We briefly touched on it during the episode of the siege.
Right.
But,
I mean, so this little mistakes like this was their demise.
Yep. Instead of focusing
And why do
on...
they keep on going to Jefferson Davis? This guy ain't nobody. He's not even like a war guy.
He's the president.
I know, but
he was
he's
the
not-
Secretary of War for the United States, wasn't he?
Maybe. Secretary of War?
Defense or something,
No,
wasn't
he was something.
he? Before he went to the Confederates, I believe he was something with a war.
So he was a Senate and he was a House member.
Senator, yeah, he was United States Secretary of War from till 1857. So, yeah, he knew the war. He knew some war. Well, from what 53 to 57, what was going on there? He did some Pacific Railroad surveys. Oversaw the building of the Washington Aqueduct. Didn't really have a war right there. Immediate control of the offensive of Milliken's Bend went to Major General Richard Taylor, who was given a division of Texans known as Walker's Texas Greyhounds. Taylor moved the 5,000-man force to Richmond, Louisiana, but did not believe that the coming expedition had any real chance of disrupting Grant's siege of Vicksburg. June 5th, Taylor learned that Milliken's Bend was no longer a significant supply point, but the planned offensive continued with the hopes of retaking control of the west bank of the Mississippi River, at least, and gaining the ability to send food across the river into Vicksburg.
I mean, I guess that was a plus.
Right. Richmond, June 6th, Taylor detached the 13th Louisiana Cavalry Battalion on a raid against Lake Providence, Louisiana, while Walker's Greyhounds continued to the site of Oak Grove Plantation, where there was a road junction. One Confederate brigade split off to move against a Union position at Young's Point, while Brigadier General Henry McCulloch's brigade advanced against Milliken's Bend, and a third brigade was held in reserve at Oak Grove.
Oh, look at these guys. They're going to pick a battle where the Union didn't even enforce it anymore.
Right.
The Union posts at Milliken's Bend, Young Point, and Lake Providence had become training grounds for African-American soldiers. These soldiers were primarily newly recruited freed slaves. I mean, so Union leadership's plan had been to use these soldiers as laborers and camp guards as slaves.
Right.
Rather than frontline soldiers. So they had only received basic military training, and if that, they didn't even have shoes. And watch the movie Glory. And that was the Union side. Because they all know there were no blacks on the Confederate.
Lies.
There were. They were fighting for it. It's
Well,
true. Some were.
No.
Some did.
No.
Yeah. Well, Civil War wasn't about slavery, so yeah, some were fighting for the Confederates.
I'm guaranteeing there was less than 20
People?
blacks that fought for the Confederate willingly.
That's fine.
Not at all.
At this very same time, the colored troop units were commanded by white officers, obviously. Mustering these soldiers into the Union Army faced some opposition, though, with some believing that they would not fight. They're not going to fight. Why would they fight?
Well, we just had the one last battle where the
Right,
one...
This was before that.
No.
This is during it.
Yeah.
The support of several officers, including Major General John A. Logan, however, helped to reduce some of the resistance. Oh, isn't that nice? The soldiers at Milliken's Bend had no prior experience with firearms before joining the Army and demonstrated very poor marksmanship during training. Oh, obviously. What's this? Oh, I mean, come on. Teach them. You'd be good. Colonel Herman Lieb commanded the camp, which was manned by an infantry brigade of African-American soldiers and some cavalry from Illinois.
Hey, both Lieb and Brigadier General Elias Dennis, who commanded the Union troops in the area, suspected that Confederates were preparing to attack at Milliken's Bend, while his 9th Louisiana Infantry Regiment and the 10th Illinois Cavalry Regiment had encountered Confederates near Tallulah on June 6 during an expedition towards Richmond. Lieb requested reinforcements, and the 23rd Iowa Infantry Regiment and the ironclad USS Choctaw were sent to Milliken's Bend. They're like, even though we don't have our supply depot here no more, we're still going to protect it.
Right.
Because they know they can't open up that bank across from Vicksburg.
No, definitely not. They're lucky the Mississippi's a nice-sized river.
Ah.
Or the Yazoo, actually, they're on, weren't they?
Nope.
The Mississippi. June 7th, McCulloch's 1,500 Confederates marched to Milliken's Bend in the cooler nighttime, and by 2:30 a.m. arrived within 1.5 miles of Milliken's Bend. By 3 a.m., they were within 1 mile of the very Union position they were going to fight. Lieb's 1,100 Union soldiers had constructed a defensive position by forming a breastwork out of cotton bales on top of a levee, but that it was dry.
Right. And then they were drinking whiskey and rye.
Singing.
This will be the day that we probably die.
Well, the Union pickets were quickly driven back by the Confederates. McCulloch aligned his regiments with the 19th Texas Infantry, 17th Texas Infantry, the 16th Texas Cavalry from right to left, with the 16th Texas Infantry was held in reserve.
Lieb's defensive line was held by the 23rd Iowa Infantry Regiment and the U.S. colored troops of the 8th Louisiana Infantry Regiment, the 9th Louisiana Infantry Regiment, the 10th Louisiana Infantry Regiment, the 11th Louisiana Infantry Regiment, a 13th Louisiana Infantry Regiment, the 1st Mississippi Infantry Regiment.
The Union got all of Louisiana now?
Yeah, man, they control basically all of it.
Oh, shit.
The main Union, don't you remember Baton Rouge?
Baton Rouge and Nolens?
Yeah. The main Union line fired a volley that temporarily slowed the Confederate attack, but the poorly trained African-American soldiers were largely unable to reload their weapons before the Confederate charge continued and became close quarters fighting. Bayonets were used, and the Union defenders were driven back.
Of course they were.
Lieb's men fell back to a second levee with the Confederates charge, yelling that no mercy would be given.
Ooh.
Yeah, and you know if they're taking control of these black guys, freed slaves, they're either going to murder them or take them back as slaves.
You ain't getting. During this stage of the fighting, few shots were fired, as use of the rifles as blunt weapons and bayonets was more common. By 4 o'clock a.m., the Confederates seemed to have victory. But they made the mistake of exposing themselves on top of the levee.
Oh, you can expose yourself, even though it's only 1863.
Heavy fire from the large guns of USS Choctaw drove McCulloch's men back off the levee.
An Indian outlaw.
Confederate leadership was unable to get the Texans to attack the levee again. McCulloch requested reinforcements to continue the fighting, but another Union vessel, the timber-clad USS Lexington, arrived right around 9 a.m. McCulloch withdrew his men off the field, back to Oak Grove Plantation in the face of the gunboats.
Well, the fight at Milliken's Bend cost the Union 652 men, of which 101 killed, 285 wounded, 266 missing. Many of the missing men were African-American soldiers who had been captured and returned to slavery.
Dang.
All but 65 of the Union casualties were incurred by the colored troops, with the 9th Louisiana Infantry suffering the worst, with 68% of its strength becoming casualties. Confederates lost 185 men, and rumors of the execution of captured Union soldiers reached Grant, who asked Taylor about the reports, but Taylor denied that any executions even occurred.
Like, we didn't do that.
Of course, he's not going to say it is.
But I guarantee it did.
You know some of the black ones, for sure.
Ooh, prisoner of war, and you're black?
Right.
Oh.
And you were a former slave already?
Right.
Escaped slave?
Right. So now you're, yeah.
Double. I mean, yeah. At the very least, got beat.
Right. Damn. The other two prongs of the coordinated Confederate attacks accomplished little at the Battle of Young's Point and the Battle of Lake Providence.
Oh, we'll get there.
After Vicksburg went down, the position at Milliken's Bend had fallen out of relevance not long after the battle, when the men and supplies stored there were transferred to Young's Point. So, like, everybody's gone. Why?
Right.
Parts of the site of the battle have been destroyed by changes in the course of the Mississippi River. Oh, shit. 2010 study by the American Battlefield Protection Program found that over 17,000 acres of the battlefield, about 2,000 acres, were potentially eligible to be listed on their little register list. You get to go on historic places. You just made a list. At the time of the study, there was no public interpretation of the battle at the site. Really? As of March 2021, a commemorative plaque for Milliken's Bend exists on a roadside somewhere in the ditch. They forget to weed it around, so that shit. This is near Richmond, and exhibits discussing the battle are present at the Vicksburg National Military Park. Additionally, an interpretive exhibit exists at Grant's Canal in Louisiana as well.
Hey, good for them. Well, leaders on both sides noted the performance of the African-American troops once again for Milliken's Bend. The other one was for the last battle we did, whatever that one was called.
They did good,
Hudson,
didn't they?
I think. Port Hudson.
Yeah, didn't they do good?
Yeah. Unionist Charles Dana reported that the action convinced many in the Union Army to support the enlistment of African-American soldiers.
Damn right.
Dana stated, "It is impossible for men to show greater gallantry than the Negro troops in this fight." Grant described the battle as the first significant engagement in which the colored troops had seen combat, described their conduct as most gallant, and said that with good officers, they will make good troops.
No shit.
He later praised them in his 1885 memoir, stating these men were very raw, having all been enlisted since the beginning of the siege, but they behaved well.
But they behaved well. Right. I mean, they still talk down.
Obviously.
It's just, I mean, you're getting there, guy.
Right.
Confederate leader McCulloch later reported that while the white Union troops had been routed, the colored troops had fought with considerable obstinacy. United States Secretary of War Edwin M. Stanton also praised the performance of black U.S. soldiers in the battle. He stated that their competent performance in the battle proved wrong those who had opposed the service. He says, "Many persons believed or pretended to believe and confidently asserted that freed slaves would not make good soldiers. They would lack courage and could not be subjected to a military discipline.
That's just stupid.
Facts have shown how groundless were these apprehensions.
Clearly.
The slave has proved his manhood and his capacity as an infantry soldier at Milliken's Bend, at the assault upon Port Hudson, and the storming of Fort Wagner."
Right. We'll get to that.
That's the 54th.
We'll get to it.
Oh, no, those poor guys.
Oh,
We're talking about slaughter.
Well, at least they were buried with their white commander. All in a mass grave.
Yeah.
I believe he got dug up later on, though.
Of course. They're like, he's buried where?
Right.
With who?
The family wasn't having it.
Right.
Shit, dude.
They're like, oh, hell no.
It's going to bring us to the Battle of Brandy Station, taking place on June 9th, around Brandy Station, Virginia, at the beginning of the Gettysburg Campaign.
So what the hell just happened in that last?
Nothing. They tried to take the thing, but ultimately it was driven away
By the Confederates.
by the Union.
Oh, yeah, right.
But a lot of them got captured, though. The Battle of Brandy Station was the largest predominantly cavalry engagement of the war, as well as the largest ever to take place on American soil.
No shit.
A bunch of cavalry and horses running all over the damn place.
Dude, there's freaking Braveheart up in this bitch.
Yeah.
I've never seen Braveheart.
Me neither. This is the beginning of the Gettysburg Campaign as well. So now we're mixing up Gettysburg and Vicksburg all right here, baby. Man, what a month we got going on here. With the Union cavalry under Major General Alfred Pleasanton against that good old Jeb Stuart.
Good old Jeb.
If I remember correctly, when putting this together, Jeb doesn't fare too well right here.
Jeb, he has a rough one at some point in war. I think it is.
We already did, remember? The one we did a few weeks ago. It was the first defeat of Confederate cavalry.
Yeah, I think he's realizing that they're screwed.
Maybe. Well, this Confederate Army of the Northern Virginia streamed into Culpeper County, Virginia after its victory at Chancellorsville just a couple weeks ago. Under the leadership of Robert E. Lee, the troops massed around Culpeper, preparing to carry the war north into Pennsylvania, which they will. The Confederate Army was suffering from hunger, and their equipment was poor, though.
Yeah,
they got a big problem right here, man.
Lee was having some hard times here, and he just happened to... I don't think... Is he the head guy? He's not even the head guy yet.
I think Johnson still is.
Right.
Lee's just the commander of all the Virginia armies.
Right. And now, dude, it's 3 years into this war. And the Confederate side didn't even start off with
technically 2 years, but
2.5.
not even.
And the Confederate side didn't even barely have enough shit to do now back then than they do now.
Look at the last battle at Port Hudson. They were eating rats.
Right. Didn't have the right guns. Most of them had muskets instead of rifles.
Yep. That's what happens when you fight an industrial nation.
Right, and then that industrial nation takes the biggest river, waterway, inland waterway away from you. Lee was determined to strike north to capture horses, equipment, and food for his men.
Yeah, you got to do something there, Lee.
Find all the rats you can. Let's go. His army could also threaten Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington.
Yep.
And encourage the growing peace movement into the north. That's a peace movement.
Yeah.
By June 5th, 2 infantry corps under Lieutenant James Longstreet and Richard Ewell. Hey, we haven't heard these guys.
A couple of episodes ago.
They were camped
Chancellorsville.
They were camped in and around Culpeper,
right.
6 miles northeast of Culpeper, holding the line of Rappahannock River. Stuart camped his cavalry troopers, screening the Confederate army against surprise by the enemy. Most of the Southern cavalry was camped near Brandy Station. Stuart, befitting his reputation as a dashing cavalier or a beau sabois, he requested a full field review of his troops by General Lee. This grand review on the 5th of June included nearly 9,000 mounted troopers, 4 batteries of horse artillery, charging in simulated battle at the Inlet Station, about 2 miles southwest. They're charging. And they had electric horses back then? What the hell?
They did a battle reenactment, pretty much.
Right. They did that about 2 miles southwest of Brandy Station. The review field currently remains much as it was in 1863, except that a Virginia police station occupies part of it.
Good for them, huh?
I want to see that.
Well, General Lee, he was not able to attend the review, however, so it was repeated in his presence on June 8th, although the repeated performance was limited to a simple parade without battle simulations. So it wasn't repeated.
So you lied.
Right. Despite the lower level of activity, some of the cavalrymen and the newspaper reporters at the scene complained that all Stuart was doing was feeding his ego and exhausting the horses.
Right.
Lee ordered Stuart to cross the Rappahannock the next day and raid Union forward positions, screening the Confederate army from observation or interferences as it moved north. Anticipating this imminent offensive action, Stuart ordered his tired troopers back into camp around Brandy Station.
So stupid.
Yeah.
So dumb. Around Brandy Station, Stuart's force of about 9,500 men consisted of 5 cavalry brigades, commanded by Brigadier General Wade Hampton, WHF Rooney Lee, Beverly H. Robertson, wow, William E. Grumble Jones, and Colonel Thomas T. Munford. The commanding Brigadier General Fitzhugh Lee's brigade, with Lee was stricken with a bout of rheumatism.
Like rheumatoid arthritis?
Something like that. So these guys are out.
Right.
Plus the 6th Battery Stuart Horse Artillery, commanded by Major Robert F. Beckham. They were out as well. That's Syed.
Out? How were they out?
Oh, no, they were in.
Right. And the other one wasn't out, just Fitzhugh Lee was.
Right. Unknown to the Confederates, 11,000 Union men had massed on the other side of the Rappahannock.
How do you not know?
Major General Alfred Pleasanton, commanding the Cavalry Corps of the Army of the Potomac, had organized his combined armed forces into 2 wings under Brigadier Generals John Buford and David McMurtry Gregg. David Gregg McMurtry, how about that?
Well, no.
This was augmented by infantry brigades from the 5th Corps.
All right, well, Buford's wing, accompanied by Pleasanton, consisted of his own 1st Cavalry Division, a reserve brigade led by Major Charles Whiting, and an infantry brigade of 3,000 men under Brigadier General Adelbert Ames.
Dude, these guys came stacked.
Gregg's wing was the 2nd Cavalry Division, led by Colonel Alfred Duffy, the 3rd Cavalry Division led by Gregg, and an infantry brigade under Brigadier General David Russell.
Fantastic.
The commander of the Army of the Potomac, Major General Joseph Hooker, interpreted the enemy's cavalry presence around Culpeper to be indicative of preparations for a raid of his army's supply lines. So they're coming for our supplies, dude. In reaction to this, he ordered Pleasanton's force on a spoiling raid to disperse and destroy the Confederates. Pleasanton's attack plan called for a 2-pronged thrust at the enemy.
Buford's wing would cross the river.
This is the first time we're hearing of Pleasanton.
Right. Buford's wing would cross the river at Beverly's Ford, 2 miles northeast of Brandy Station. At that very same time, Gregg's men would cross at Kelly's Ford, 6 miles downstream to the southeast. Pleasanton anticipated that the Southern cavalry would be caught in a double envelopment. Surprised, outnumbered, and beaten. He was, however, unaware of the precise disposition of the enemy. Both sides didn't even know.
Right.
And he incorrectly assumed that his force was substantially larger than the Confederates he
Only
faced.
about 11 or 1,500
How many times have we heard that before?
Always about 4:30 a.m. June 9th.
They're like within like 5 miles from each other. And you're telling me you can't send somebody out and check it out?
4:30 a.m. June 9th, Buford's column crossed the Rappahannock River in a dense fog, pushing aside the Confederate pickets at Beverly's Ford. Pleasanton's force had achieved its first major surprise of the day. Jones's brigade, awakened by the sound of nearby gunfire, rode to the scene partially dressed and often riding bareback. Would he just take his shirt off multiple times?
Right.
Often riding bareback. They struck Buford's leading brigade, commanded by Colonel Benjamin Davis, near a bend in the Beverly's Ford Road, and temporarily checked its progress, and Davis was killed in the ensuing fighting.
Oh, no.
Davis's brigade had been stopped just short of where Stuart's horse artillery was camped and was vulnerable to capture. Cannoneers swung one or two guns into position and fired down the road at Buford's men, enabling the other pieces to escape and establish the foundation for the subsequent Confederate line. The artillery unlimbered on two knolls that were on either side of the Beverly's Ford Road.
Oh, shit. Most of Jones's command rallied to the left of this Confederate artillery line, while Hampton's brigade formed to the right. The 6th Pennsylvania Cavalry, led by Major Robert Morris, Jr., unsuccessfully charged the guns at St. James Church, suffering the greatest casualties of any regiment in the battle. Several Confederates later described the sixth charge. Several Confederates later described the Pennsylvania 6th charge as the most brilliant and glorious cavalry charge of the war. Wow, look at Confederates giving them love.
Even though they suffered greatest casualties of the regiment.
Right. In many Civil War battles, cavalrymen typically dismounted once they reached an engagement and fought essentially as infantry.
Right.
But in this battle, the surprise and chaos led mostly mounted fight.
Damn, that would have been nice, huh?
Buford tried to turn the Confederate left and dislodge the artillery that was blocking the direct route to Brandy Station. However, Rooney Lee's brigade stood in his way, with some troops on Yew Ridge and some dismounted troops positioned alongside a stone wall in the front.
Damn stone walls, man. After sustaining heavy losses, the Federals displaced the Confederates from the stone wall. Then, to the amazement of Buford's men, the Confederates began pulling back.
That happens all the time.
Right. They were reacting to the arrival of Gregg's Union Cavalry Division, about 2,800 men, which was the second major surprise of the day. Gregg had intended to cross at Kelly's Ford at dawn, in concert with Buford's at Beverly's, but assembling the men from dispersed locations and Duffy's division getting lost on the way cost them 2 hours. So we got to go here. They had intended to proceed on the roads leading directly into Brandy Station, but discovered the way blocked by Robertson's brigade of the Confederates. Gregg found a more circuitous route that was completely unguarded, and following these roads, his lead brigade under Colonel Percy Wyndham arrived in Brandy Station about 11 a.m.
Between Gregg and the St. James battle was a prominent ridge called Fleetwood Hill, which had been Stuart's headquarters the previous night.
Fleetwood.
Oh, Jeb Stuart and most of his staff had departed for the front by this time. The only force on Fleetwood Mac when Gregg arrived was howitzer, left in the rear because of inadequate ammo. I mean, that's a...
was a howitzer, not howitzer.
Right. Was a howitzer. It was left behind. That's usually what happened, man. They ran out of shit. They're like, why do we need to carry that with us? We don't have nothing to shoot it with. Shoot with it. Major Henry McClellan, Stuart's adjutant, called Lieutenant John Carter and his gun crew of Captain Robert Chew's battery to ascend to the crest of the hill and go into action with the few shells available, as he sent an urgent request to Stuart for reinforcements. Carter's few shots delayed the Union advance as they sent out skirmishers and returned cannon fire. When Windmen of the North's men charged up to the western slope of the Fleetwood Mac and near the crest, the lead elements of Jones' brigade, which had just withdrawn from St. James Church, rode over the crown.
I don't understand what you just said.
I'm like, what is going on here?
Gregg's next brigade, led by Colonel Judson Kilpatrick, swung around east of Brandy Station and attacked up southern end and the eastern slope of Fleetwood Hill, only to discover that their appearance coincided with the arrival of Hampton's brigade. A series of confusing charges and countercharges swept back and forth across the hill. The Confederates cleared the hill for the final time, capturing 3 guns and inflicting 30 casualties among the 36 men, holy shit, of the 6th New York Light Artillery, which had attempted to give close-range support to the Federal cavalry. Colonel Duffy's small 1,200-man division was delayed by 2 Confederate regiments in the vicinity of Stevensburg and arrived on the field too late to effect the action.
Cool. While Jones and Hampton withdrew from their initial positions to fight at Fleetwood Hill Mac, Rooney Lee continued to confront Buford, falling back to the northern end of the hill. Reinforced by Fitzhugh Lee's brigade, Rooney Lee launched a counterattack against Buford at the same time as Pleasanton had called for a general withdrawal near sunset, and the 10-hour battle was over. So there's like, you attack. And we're like, we're just going to withdraw. And so they didn't even know it. We're like, yeah, we ran them off. And we're like, no.
Is that what happened?
High morale high, right? They think they did something good.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, Union casualties were 907, 69 killed, 352 wounded, 486 missing, which were all primarily captured. Confederate losses totaled 523. Some 20,500 men were engaged in this, which was the largest predominantly cavalry battle to take place during the war, like we said.
It's ridiculous.
Among the casualties was Robert E. Lee's son, Rooney, who was seriously wounded in the thigh. He was sent to the Hickory Hill in a state near Hanover Courthouse, where he was captured on June 26th.
Oh, shit.
He didn't die, though. Stuart argued that the battle was a Confederate victory since he held the field at the end of the day, and he had repelled Pleasanton's attack. The Southern press was generally negative about this outcome.
I mean, he was right. They didn't advance.
He didn't get the job done either.
Right, it's true. The Richmond Enquirer wrote, General Stuart has suffered no little in public estimation by the late enterprises of the enemy. Damn, that's harsh. Whatever.
Right.
The Richmond Examiner described Stuart's command as puffed up cavalry.
Oh, damn, dude. They're not liking Jeb right now.
And that suffered the consequences of negligence and bad management.
Oh.
Subordinate officers criticized Pleasanton from the north for not aggressively defeating Stuart at Brandy Station. Oh, shit. Now we're going.
Brandy Station? But
Major General Hooker had ordered Pleasanton to disperse and destroy the Confederate cavalry near Culpeper, but Pleasanton claimed that he had only been ordered to make a reconnaissance and force toward Culpeper. And he was like, dude, I'm just supposed to check shit out. For the first time in the Civil War, Union cavalry matched the Confederate horsemen in skill and determination.
well, not true.
Stuart falling victim to 2 surprise attacks, which cavalry was supposed to prevent.
Right.
Foreshadowed.
Right, you're cavalry. You're not supposed to get surprised.
Right. And this also foreshadowed other embarrassments ahead of him in the Gettysburg Campaign. Oh, dude. Yeah, Stuart, he funked up in Gettysburg, but it was a bad time for him to be in a slump.
Right.
This is not when I need you to hit over 75 and 15 strikeouts, bud.
All right. The Brandy Station Foundation, the BSF, was formed to protect the Brandy Station battlefield from development. According to Clark B. Hall, a small group of citizens came together over coffee in a little home situated just south of the Rappahannock River in eastern Culpeper County, Virginia. Okay. Over time, the organization grew to over 400 members, has been the cornerstone of efforts to save the battlefield from attempts to turn it into an office park and a racetrack, as well as preserving the historic building known as Graffiti House. Yeah, the Graffiti House. Remember that one? Where the all the Confederates put their names and shit on it?
Very true.
In 1990, the National Park Service completed mapping of historic resources at Brandy Station and recommended preservation of 1,262 acres at 4 separate engagement areas.
American Battlefield Trust, formerly known as the Civil War Trust, has been the major preservation organization involved at the Brandy Station.
I would assume so.
The trust, supplemented by the BSF and other partners, has acquired and preserved 2,159 acres of the battlefield and more than 15 separate acquisitions from 1997 through 2021. In 2003, this led to the opening of the Brandy Station Battlefield Park, which interprets the history of the site. Oh, that's nice. Like here, something happened with some people.
All right, some things.
Some things happened with some people. This work has prevented some racists fought racists. This work has prevented a number
How
of...
many times are you going to start the same damn sentence over again?
Oh, I had that one, but you interrupted me. So now I got to do it again. This work...
I don't think you're...
This work has prevented a number of commercial enterprise from infringing on the battleground. Nice. Including a proposed Formula One racetrack in the late 1990s.
Formula One?
I would have built that shit.
At least find another site.
Right.
Yeah, they did. I don't know.
In 2013, the trust achieved a major preservation success by purchasing a 61-acre tract at Fleetwood Hill Mac, site of the number of significant cavalry charges during the battle. Of a number, not just one.
Obviously.
2022, Virginia agreed to accept 1,700 acres of the trust and purchase up to 800 additional acres to form the Culpeper's Battlefield State Park.
Nice.
The park is scheduled to open July 1st, 2024.
Nice.
That's if we're still here.
Well, All right, that's going to do it for us. I thought we were going to get into the Battle of Lake Providence at least, but
Nah, it's not going to happen.
next week we'll definitely have the Battle of Providence
All right, maybe only that.
Station and the second Battle of Winchester for show.
Ooh, Battle of Winchester. The first one was like a skirmish, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
I think I do. It's just like a little yip, 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 boom, 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 ha, yay.
Woo. Even though that looks like a pretty decent sized one, so we'll probably just have the Winchester and Providence next week. We got about 13 more battles before we get to the Battle of Gettysburg, so probably about 3 or 4, 5, 6 more episodes. So lots more before we get to the actual Gettysburg, but all these battles leading up to it are mostly in the Gettysburg Campaign.
Yeah. Now we're getting down to the gritty nitty here, guys.
We're not.
The gritty nitty here.
We're not.
We are.
'Cause after Gettysburg, there's not an A battle until September. There's a battle.
Wait, go back up to Wagner.
Go back up to your mama. Where do you see Wagner?
Right
Oh.
there. That was a Class D battle.
Yeah, man, nobody gives a shit about
Get
that
outta
piece of shit
here.
battle. It's like 2 fucking paragraphs.
Right.
Seriously.
It should be way more than that. They made a whole movie on it.
It's the second battle of Fort Wagner that you're thinking of anyways.
Is it?
Stupid.
Are you sure?
This one's on
the
July
most
18th.
famous, yes.
And that one's really not that big either.
What?
How the hell they made him a whole movie out of it?
Right.
Unbeknownst to me.
Right.
The valor of the black Union soldiers in the battle was hailed.
That was the 54th Massachusetts, right?
I don't know.
It should say.
Let's just say that you're a bitch.
Oh, the beach.
Oh, Union Order battle. What we got?
Oh, no, on the beach. Yep, 54th.
Nope.
Yep, Colonel Robert Shaw
Nope.
killed in action.
Obviously.
Poor guy. The whole regiment died.
Pretty much.
54th, huh?
Anywho, that's going to do it for us in this episode of Battles of American Civil War. We'll be back for at least 2 more battles next week. Reminder, go check out Outlaws and Gunslingers. And that's available wherever you get your podcast. And this weekend, sports history. Ooh, if I had a mute button for you right now, I swear. And this week in sports history, go check us out on Rumble, at Bang Dang Network, and at YouTube, at Bang Dang Network. And other than that, we'll be back next week. We are the Mother Midget Genders with
Bang dang.